So, hello and welcome back to. I just realized my cute little unicorn has fallen over. No, don't fall, cute little unicorn. There. My cute little unicorn doesn't want to stand up at all. There we go. Anyway, hello and welcome back to another evening with Heidi by Johanna Spyri, where I was just looking at it and we're like halfway through the book. I think we're going to be hitting book 2 fairly soon. Hard to say for sure, but it's been an interesting one so far. I mean, Heidi, I feel like, is probably way better off up in the mountains, and hopefully she'll get there again fairly soon. Also, I was just looking, and we have an extremely short chapter, so we might actually do 2 today because this is like uber short. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. I hope you guys are all doing good. If you can't tell, it's raining, which is probably good, although I'm pouting a little bit because I've been out berry picking a lot and the berries are fantastic and I want to go pick them all. you know? I'm having a lot of fun exploring the back roads and probably getting too much sun. I feel like I really need to actually remember to put sunscreen on, but that's the hard part. I'm really forgetful about that, which I have no excuse for. I have sunscreen. I need to actually remember to put it on. I never forget the bug spray. Not that it always works. The horseflies are very persistent and very annoying. None of that has anything to do with Heidi, who probably wishes that she lived in the age of bug spray, at least when she was up on the mountain. I wonder what the bugs are like in Switzerland. I'm assuming they're probably a lot like here. Anyway, enough of that. We're going to read at least 1, perhaps 2 chapters of Heidi by Johanna Spyri tonight, beginning and possibly ending with chapter 11, which is actually titled Heidi Stops Crying. Every afternoon, while Clara was lying down, the grandmamma called Heidi to her room where she had some pretty dolls. She also had pieces of bright-colored materials, which she showed Heidi how to make into a dress and apron and cloaks for the dolls. So, Heidi unconsciously learned to sew. But she never looked quite happy, and there was no longer any happiness in her eyes. "Come, my child," said Frau Sussman one day. "Tell me why you are not happy. Have you still the same troubles in your heart?" "Yes," said Heidi. "Have you prayed on it?" "Yes." "And do you pray every day that all may be well and that you will be happy?" "Oh, no, I don't pray any more now." "Why, Heidi?" "It's no use," said Heidi. "When so many people in Frankfurt are praying together at night, no one can pay attention to that. He hasn't heard me." "How do you know, Heidi?" "Because I prayed every day for weeks and I've never been answered." "Oh, that is not so, Heidi. You know that God knows what's good for us. If we want something from him that's not good, he doesn't give, but something better if we continue to pray. You see, when you forget God, and he no longer hears you, and he forgets you. So, Heidi, do you want to be forgotten? If you pray every day and trust him, everything will be made right for you." "Fine, I'll go right now, and I won't forget to pray again." "That's right," said Grandmamma. It was a sad day for Heidi and Clara when Grandmamma left to go home. After the sound of the carriage wheels died away, the house seemed empty and still, As though everything had come to a finish, Heidi came into the library with her book. "Would you like to have me read to you, Clara?" she said. Clara was delighted at this, but Heidi had scarcely begun to read the story, which told of a dying grandmother, when she burst into sobs. "Oh, the grandmother is dead," she cried. For to Heidi it seemed that everything that she read about was actually happening. "I can never see her again, and I never gave her a single roll." Clara tried to explain that the grandmother in the story was not the grandmother up on the mountain, but Heidi was so sad she went on crying. The thought occurred to her then that the grandmother of the mountain might really die, and her grandfather too, while she was far away. If she didn't go home soon, she might find everything still and lifeless up on the mountain, and then she would be all alone and never again see those who were dear to her. Meanwhile, Fräulein Rottenheimer had come in. "Adelheid," she said, "we've had enough of your senseless screaming. If you ever give way to such an outburst again while you're reading, I will take the book away from you." Heidi turned pale, for the book was her dearest treasure. She quickly dried her tears and swallowed back her sobs. This took effect, and Heidi did not cry ever again, no matter what she read. But sometimes she had to make such an effort to control herself that Clara said, "Heidi, you're making the most frightful faces I've ever seen." But the faces made no sound, and they did not offend Fräulein Rottenheimer. But Heidi lost her appetite, and she became so thin and pale that Sebastian could hardly bear to look and see how she let all of the nicest food go untouched. "Take some, mademoiselle," he would whisper. "A good spoonful, and then another." But his advice did no good. Heidi ate almost nothing. And thus passed the autumn and winter, and spring came again. The white walls opposite her window were dazzlingly bright in the sunshine, and Heidi knew the time was getting close for Peter to drive the goats up onto the mountain again, and the rock roses would be glistening in the light, and everything in the mountains would be on fire. When Heidi remembered this, she sat down in a corner of her lonely room and put both hands over her eyes so she couldn't see the sunlight. She would sit without moving, silently fighting her homesickness until Clara called for her again. And that is the end of a very depressing chapter 12 or 11. Okay. I'm not the biggest of Bible-y people, so all of the grandmama stuff kind of just flies by me. But the homesickness and the kind of just shoving it down, I resonate with that a lot. Also, we have a Schminky in the window. Hello, kitty. Hello, kitty. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and do another chapter because that might have been the shortest chapter ever, and it was a heck of a downer. So give me a second and we will do another chapter. Kitty break. What a silly cat. Oh, and all you're getting is Leaf. Anyway, we're going to go on and read another chapter. Well, this one tries to get into trouble. So here we go, starting on chapter 12, which isn't titled much better. It's titled A Haunted House. For several days, Fräulein Rottenheimer had been acting very strangely. At dusk, when she went from one room to another, she gave a quick glance behind her as if she thought someone were following. If she had an errand on the upper floor, she pretended there was something to carry up or down, and always called Tinette to go with her. Tinette did the same. If she had any work to do, upstairs or downstairs, she called Sebastian, telling him she had something to carry and might not be able to do it alone. Strange to say, if Sebastian was sent to a remote part of the house, he asked Johann, the coachman, to accompany him. While this was going on upstairs, the cook, who had been in the house for many years, stood below deep in thought amongst her pots and pans and shook her head, sighing, "That I should live to see this." For some time, there had been something uncanny going on in the Sussman house. Every morning when the servants came down, the front door stood open. The first few times this happened, the house was searched, but nothing had been stolen. Every night, the door was not only double locked, but a big wooden door or wooden bar was put across it, but this made no difference. Every morning, the door stood wide open. Obviously, they have a cat who's trying to play with things and knock them down. Speaking of knocking them down, cats. They make everything cat-like. At last, Johann and Sebastian took courage and prepared to spend the night in the room adjoining the great hall to see what would happen. Fräulein Rottenheimer got out some of Herr Sussman's weapons and gave them, shaking the whole time, to Sebastian. The two men sat down on the appointed evening, but after a while they became rather sleepy. It wasn't until the clock struck 1 that Johann woke with a start. "Now, Sebastian," he said, trying to sound brave, "we must go out and see how things are. You need not be afraid. Come after me." Johann opened the door and stepped into the hall. At that same instant, a sharp gust of air blew in through the open front door and blew out the light that Johann held in his hand. He ran back and almost threw Sebastian, who was standing behind him, back into the other room. In haste, he closed the door and turned the key, and then he pulled out his matches and made a light again. Sebastian didn't know what had happened, for he had been standing behind the broad-shouldered Johann, but when he saw how pale he was, he said, "What is the matter? What was outside?" "The door was wide open," said Johann. "There was a white form on the steps. It came up the steps, disappeared, and was gone." That made cold shivers run down Sebastian's spine. He and Johann sat very close together and did not move until morning. Then they went out together, closed the open door, and went upstairs to tell Fräulein Rottenheimer about their experience. She was quite ready to listen. When she learned what had happened, she sat down and wrote Herr Sussman that he must come home at once. Herr Sussman answered by return mail that he couldn't leave his business and that the whole ghost story sounded rather strange to him. Probably by now Fräulein Rottenheimer's fright was a thing of the past, but if she had any more trouble, he suggested that she write to Frau Sussman to come and help her. His mother would surely dispel the ghosts quickly, and never again would they disturb his house. Fräulein Rottenheimer was not pleased with the tone of this letter. She wrote immediately to Frau Sussman and got a sarcastic reply. Frau Sussman did not think it worthwhile to travel all the way from Holstein to Frankfurt because Rottenheimer was seeing ghosts. A ghost had never been seen in the Sussman house, and if there was one wandering around there now, well then, Rottenheimer ought to be able to come up with an understanding with it. And if not, she could call the night watchman. But Fräulein Rottenheimer was determined not to spend her days any more in terror, and she knew how to help herself. She had said nothing to the children about the ghost, but now she went straight to the library where the girls were sitting together, and in a low, frightened voice, she told them about the strange ghost that appeared every night. Clara screamed and said she would not stay alone one more minute and that her papa must come home and Fräulein Rottenheimer should sleep in her room, and also that Heidi should not be alone either. She was so excited that Fräulein Rottenheimer promised to write her papa at once. She offered to sleep in Clara's room, and she said that Tinette could put up a couch in Adelheide's, but Heidi was more afraid of Tinette than she was of ghosts, because she had never heard of such things, and she said she would much rather be alone. Don't blame her. After this, Fräulein Rottenheimer fairly flew to her writing desk. She wrote Herr Sussman that the mysterious things going on in the house were affecting his daughter's delicate health, and that she, Fräulein Rottenheimer, could not be responsible for any consequences. This brought results. 2 days later, Herr Sussman was standing at his door and rang so violently that Sebastian ran down 2 steps at a time to admit him. The master of the house did not stop to talk with his servant, but went immediately to his daughter's room. Clara greeted her papa with a cry of joy, and his stern expression softened a bit when he saw her looking so cheerful. She assured him that she was just as fine as usual, and that she was grateful to the ghost because it caused him to come home. "And what further pranks has the ghost been up to, Fräulein Rottenheimer?" said Herr Sussman.
"Indeed, Herr Sussman, it's no laughing matter. I have no doubt by tomorrow Herr Sussman will find it serious enough. What is going on in this house signifies that something terrible must have happened here in days gone by, and has been kept secret."
"Well, I know nothing about that, but I must beg of you not to harbor any suspicions about my honorable ancestors. Call Sebastian into the dining room. I wish to talk to him alone."
Herr Sussman had noticed that Sebastian and Fräulein Rottenheimer were not the best of friends, and he had his suspicions.
"Come here, Sebastian," he said when the servant entered. "Now tell me truly, have you been playing a part of a ghost in order to plague Fräulein Rottenheimer?"
"No," said Sebastian. "On my word, I have myself not felt at all comfortable about this matter," said Sebastian.
"Oh, well, if that's the case, I will show you and the brave Johann tomorrow what ghosts look like in the daylight. Shame on you, Sebastian, a strong fellow like you running from ghosts. Go to my old friend, Dr. Clausen, give him my compliments, and tell him he must come here without fail at 9 o'clock. I've come home from Paris on purpose just to consult him. It is such a serious matter that he might and must spend the night with me. Do you understand, Sebastian?"
Yes, indeed, sir.
You may be sure I will do as you say."
Punctually, at 9, after the children had gone to sleep and Fräulein Rottenheimer had retired, the doctor appeared. He looked a bit anxious, but as his friend greeted him, he broke out into a laugh.
Well, for one who must have his doctor spend the night, you look very healthy, friend." "I'm not your patient," said Herr Sussman. "I called you to help me catch a ghost. My house is haunted." The doctor just laughed. "A fine state of affairs, doctor," said Herr Sussman. "It is a shame my friend Rottenheimer cannot enjoy it. She is convinced that a former Sussman is wandering around and expediting some dreadful deeds." "And how did she find out about this?" said the doctor, still very amused. Herr Sussman told his friend what had happened as he led the way downstairs to the same room where Johann and Sebastian kept watch. On the table were 2 lit candelabra and 2 revolvers. If one of the servants was trying to play a joke, a shot in the air would frighten them and give them a much-needed lesson. On the other hand, if thieves were trying to masquerade as ghosts, well, safer is better than sorry. The door into the hall was partly shut so that the light would not frighten the ghost, and the gentlemen sat down and began to talk, enjoying themselves so much that the clock struck 12 before they even knew it. The ghost has spied on us. It's not coming tonight, said the doctor. Have patience. It might come at 1, said Herr Sussman. And they went on talking. The clock struck 1. Everything was still. Even on the street there was no sound to be heard. Suddenly, the doctor lifted a finger. Shh, Sussman, do you hear something? They both listened. They heard the bar softly but quite distinctly pushed back, and the key turned twice in the lock. The door opened, and Herr Sussman reached for his revolver. Are you afraid? Said the doctor. Better to be cautious, said Herr Sussman, grabbing the candelabra with its 3 lit candles in his left hand and the revolver in his right. The doctor followed, likewise provided with lights and a revolver, and they stepped into the corridor. Through the wide open door, the pale moonlight came in and lit up a form in white which was standing motionless on the threshold. Who's there? The doctor yelled, and both gentlemen with lights and weapons went toward the figure. It turned around and gave a little scream. There stood Heidi, with bare feet, her white nightdress looking bewildered at the bright lights and the guns. She was shaking like a leaf in the wind. Child, what does this mean? Said Herr Sussman. Why have you come down here? Heidi was so scared she could barely make a sound. I don't know. Then the doctor stepped up. Sussman, this case belongs in my domain. Go sit in your chair for a while. I'll take the child back to bed. And we finally have a picture. Whereupon he laid his revolver on the floor, took Heidi by the hand, and went upstairs with her. Don't be afraid, he said. Just be very quiet. There's no harm. When they were in Heidi's room, the doctor laid her on her bed and covered her carefully and sat down beside her and waited till she stopped shaking. Then he took her hand and said, There, everything is fine. Now tell me where you wanted to go. He didn't want to go anywhere, said Heidi. I didn't go down there myself. I was just there. Indeed. And did you dream anything so that you saw and heard something clearly? Yes. Every night I dream always the same thing. I think I'm with my grandfather, and I hear the fir trees roaring outside, and I think, now the stars are sparkling in the sky, and I run and I open the door of the hut, and it's so beautiful. But when I wake up, I'm in Frankfurt still. Heidi struggled to swallow the lump in her throat. Do you ever have pain in your head or back? No, only something that presses all the time like a rock. Like something you've eaten? No, not like that, but it's so heavy, like I need to cry. And do you? No, I don't dare. Fräulein Rottenheimer forbade it. And then you swallow it down? You like to stay in Frankfurt, don't you? Yes, she replied faintly, but it sounded as if she meant the opposite. Where did you live with your grandfather? On the Alm. It's not very pleasant there. Rather dreary, isn't it? No, it's lovely. So lovely. And Heidi could say no more. The memories of the Alm and the excitement that she had just been through were too much for her. She broke out into loud sobs, and tears rushed from her eyes. There now. Cry a little, said the doctor. It will do you good. Then go to sleep and be happy in your sleep. Tomorrow everything will be all right. When he went downstairs, he sat down opposite his friend. Sussman, he said, your little protégée walks in her sleep. Unconsciously, she has opened the door every night like a ghost and put all your servants into a fervor of fright. In the second place, the child is wasting from homesickness, so that she is reduced almost to a little skeleton. Send her home tomorrow. That's my prescription." Herr Sussman rose from his chair and walked up and down the room. "A sleepwalker?" he said. "The child is sick, homesick, wasting away. All of this in my house, and no one noticed? Do you think, doctor, that I will send the child back to her grandfather in that condition? Take her in hand, put her under treatment, do whatever, but make her healthy. Then I will send her home if she wishes." "Sussman," said the doctor, "her condition is so bad that no illness can be cured with powders or pills. If you send her back now, the bracing mountain air which she is accustomed, she will grow well again. If not, you would not like to send her back beyond all help to her grandfather, or never at all, would you?" Herr Sussman stood and stared at the doctor. "Well, if this is your advice, doctor, I must follow immediately. Heidi will go home tomorrow." And that is the end of the chapter where, yay, Heidi finally gets to go home. How nobody noticed that she was wasting away, becoming skeletal and miserable all the time, I don't know, unless she is just really, really good during the day at the fake it till you make it thing. It just doesn't sound like she was making it very well. I feel bad for Clara, because Clara is sort of the innocent party in all of this, but I'm happy that maybe Heidi will get to go home. Anyway, that is where we are going to leave it today. Y'all got a double up or a double chapter. That's pretty awesome. I couldn't leave you with just like a 6-minute chapter. That was a little bit ridiculous. So I guess tomorrow we will be heading back to the mountains, and maybe things will be better for Heidi again. I feel like that's also not the last we've seen of Clara, especially since I think that is supposed to be Clara on the back there. So I guess we'll have to wait and see, though. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter as much as I enjoyed reading it, and I will see you tomorrow.